agenda items that are shown in red font on the agenda that was distributed, 6.4 and 9.4. Let's
I will approve the agenda with the additions.
Mr. Stover will approve it. Mr. Gender, you had your hand up?
No, it's already been taken care of. Thank you.
All in favor? It's carried. And maybe we will start with introductions before we go to minutes. So we'll go around the table where everyone knows who everyone is. Rich, we'll start with you.
Rich Fitzgerald, GIS Coordinator and Development Officer.
Attorney Gender, Board Member, good morning.
Sherry Needs, Chair.
Larry Clark, Board Member. Wayne Nixon, Board Member.
Les Stulberg, Board Member.
James Nyberg, Board Member.
Jacinta Donovan, Director of Planning Services.
Craig Teal, Director of Parkland Planning Services.
Director of Municipal Services.
Yes.
Jeremy,
Make sure your phones are shut off. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. And we will move on to the minutes. Mr. Nyberg.
I'll move the minutes be accepted as presented.
Call the question, all in favor? Now, since we have, do we have anyone online or just here in the chamber?
Here as well. So we have 6.1 is online. And then 6.2 and 7.1 are in the gallery. And as well, if we could give consideration to Parkland Planning, their files are the subdivision files. So if we could dispose of those before the rest of the development files, it would enable them to do some other work for us out in the field today.
Okay, that's good. Yes. Okay. So maybe we'll start with 6.1 then. We'll do our development officer's report first.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chairman. So we have an application to install a communication antenna and structure within the agricultural district.
Oh, did you want to do the report first? We must start with that.
Whichever.
Yeah, we'll have you do it.
Okay.
And we'll go into 6.1.
So as far as our report for July, we are currently 50% more than at 2020. We have 101 applications to date for 2021, and we had 51 at this time last year. Our subdivisions, we are at 17, and we are just catching up. So we're right on par with what we were doing at this time last year, handling those. And so the report on page 3, we are having our service self-serve permitting system for the temporary RV permits is now up and running on our website, and it seems to be working very well. Had a good response to it. And we've done a number of inspections with all the new applications that we've received. So everything is listed on the report. Also, I was going to mention that we have not heard back from Mr. Shorten regarding the docking and mooring policy. I have heard from other municipalities that they have enforced in some areas where the docks were put in without the temporary field authorization. But as you know, our last communication with him, he was to apply for some discretion in some areas. So I haven't heard back from him on that regard.
Mr. Nyberg.
Question, who did the enforcement? Was it Alberta?
Alberta Environment Parks.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
We are working with Ocean Sands Heights Community Association for the storage of the docks and the lifts on the environmental reserve. So they will be bringing an application to next month's meeting. So that summarizes our report for this time. Thank you.
We have a motion to approve the report. Mr. Clerk, all in favor? It's carried. Okay, now we'll move to 6.1.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So yes, we have an application for a communication tower, 45-meter tower on the northeast of 13820, west of the 4th, which is just south of town, just off of Highway 56. So as we know, we have asked to do a co-location assessment, and they have not discovered any towers that would be possible for their location. It's not suitable for their equipment that they wish to install. They have done a public notification through adjacent landowners and as well as advertised it in the local paper on the May 27th. And once a decision is issued by our MPC, we will also circulate to anyone within 1 mile radius, all the landowners and people on the title, regarding the proposed tower. Sorry, do you have any questions on that? So the conditions are listed as per our land use bylaw on the requirements, and they have their roadside development permit from Alberta Transportation, which is noted there as a condition under the front yard setbacks. Summarize everyone. And Mr. Dyer is online if you have any questions.
Madam Chair, I'll move that. It's anytime we can improve the internet service within our community is a good thing. So definitely move that.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. So thank you. Now we'll move on to 6.2 DP 21084, Lot 2, Block 14, Plan 7720488.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So the application is to install a 720 square foot ancillary building. It's a canvas covered structure within the hamlet of Erskine. There is an existing canvas covered structure on the site which will be removed to accommodate the construction of a greenhouse in that current location. So the section 49.1 of our county's land use bylaw stipulates that the development of a canvas covered structure is a discretionary use, and a municipal planning commission in its sole discretion shall approve a development permit for the structure on a temporary basis. And Mr. Johnson is here if you have any questions.
Mr. Nyberg.
I'll move this as well. It's pretty straightforward, so I don't think there's anything that of concern.
Okay, so any questions with this one?
Are you going to be growing pineapples?
You can get us some hematite warm weather.
There you go.
Okay, so we'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to, we'll move down to 7.1. Subdivision 2021-08, Northeast 19, 3819, west of the 4th, and page 69.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I will preempt this a little bit with an explanation of our subdivision reports that probably changed from what you typically said. I've seen. This is a piece we are still getting a little bit used to how you've been dealing with subdivision and interpreting your policy. So we have chosen to provide a little bit more expanded material than what you may see. I'm not going to go through all of it. Hopefully you had a chance to read the report. This particular application is the creation of a 5-acre parcel that had been previously unsubdivided quarter section, actually pretty close to the county shop in the Stettler ward. The application does meet all the intent of the municipal development plan and the land use bylaw. After that, you see a series of issues that we typically try to check for every single subdivision. Is there opportunity for a safe and effective road access? Do they have the ability to have space for water and wastewater services? And we've also chosen to identify the road dedication issue, which comes up in every single application, and also the rural development fund. So in terms of the road dedication, there is no need for additional dedication in this particular case. They already have the that addressed with a 30-meter right-of-way across the frontage and across the north of the quarter section. In terms of the access, the existing access doesn't quite meet the land use bylaw requirement for separation distance of 152 meters. We've looked at the sight lines. It looks reasonable. You see some of the pictures in the report. That's a good sight distance in both the north and south direction. So it was suggested in the application and the processing of this that existing access could be upgraded to meet the county standard, or there's still space further south of that before you run out of the boundaries of the proposed parcel to provide another access at a different location down there that would also meet or could meet the distance, but also should be designed and built to a county spec. In terms of water and wastewater services, that's proposed right now to possibly be a future well and a holding tank in the septic field. So at this particular point, we don't know the exact nature of the technology, but our check is there sufficient space? And typically on a 5-acre parcel, there's enough to accommodate that. The only system that can be accommodated would be the open discharge system on a 5-acre parcel. Reserves is another item we always check, and when it's the first parcel out, we're not able to obtain either environmental reserves or municipal reserve dedication, so that waits until a future subdivision. And a rural development fund, we've applied or interpreted the policy, and provided the final parcel comes in at exactly 5 acres, the $1,000 per acre thereafter won't kick in. That's our interpretation of that. With that, Madam Chairman, the recommendations you can find on page 79 of your agenda package. And it is recommended that the Municipal Planning Commission approve this subdivision application subject to the conditions that you can see listed. Some of those are relatively standard ones that you're probably used to seeing. So in the county stellar, you require the use of plan of surveys as opposed to descriptive plans or other tools. So very specific on what kind of survey work has to follow up on this. Number 2, the typical settling up of property taxes, just like a real estate transaction before we change who owns what, settle up those. Number 3, a standard one to make sure the new parcel gets the address assigned as selected by county staff and assigned under the addressing file to put up the appropriate addressing sign. Number 4, we've got a kind of an and or based on the access locations, because in our view, we think that there's a couple ways that this could be tackled, and both may be acceptable. So there's a bit of choice there for the applicant on what to do with that. And number 5, dealing with what I think is a relatively standard request when we're looking at new access points coming onto any county road right away from operations, to say that the opportunity to do brushing back to the property line with the consent of the property owner. So that also is indicated as a condition. With that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to field any questions, and I do point out the applicant is here with us today.
Mr. Lambert?
You're going to move it, go ahead. I just have a question.
I have a question too.
I'm just, in the pictures that I'm seeing and the subject parcel that we're working on, I don't see any brush that we're talking about from our Director of Public Works.
Madam Chair, actually, we can just scroll back to that last picture. And the comments coming back, as I understand them, are not necessarily for just the frontage of the parcel. And as you can see, sorry, back to the other one, right there, that's one. They're not necessarily right in front of the parcel that we're talking about. I think typically the department's taking the opportunity to look at the entire 800-meter frontage, dealing with that as a subject parcel. And I think in this particular picture on the left-hand side of the road, you can see up where the existing acreage is, those may be some of the trees in question. Upon field inspection, I don't think there may not be a lot in this particular case.
Yeah, I'm not sure it needs to be a condition in this, because I mean, we do brushing on our own right away at any given time anyways. This is a non-issue to me because it doesn't look like it affects the subject parcel. If this transaction was 2 different people doing it, I don't think we could hold the original landowner to any kind of standard for that, but that's fine. We can do brushing at any given time, so it's not a big issue for me. If Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, my question to Craig. Craig, you say with the 5-acre parcel that an open discharge system would be accepted. It would not be accepted. Okay, I heard would, because I thought with that well and everything.
My mistake, that's the only type of technology that we cannot accept.
Okay, so a field or something could be looked at.
Very much advanced system or a holding tank for pure pump out if you wanted to do that option too.
Okay, thank you.
Pump out and take away.
Mr. Nixon.
Yes, I'd like to move that this application be approved with the conditions listed.
Mr. General.
Yes, like with Mr. Nyberg's comments there, they generally take it from the fence line in the center of the approach out 150 meters, and this is definitely, I don't see any trees involved in there. I was just wondering, Craig, also, was there any indication, okay, I always look at a trade-off between, say, like a septic field versus, say, purchasing the extra land and then being able to have an open discharge. I was just kind of wondering whether they were possibly made aware of the price differences that could be in there. Because anytime that I've asked any home builders, they say you take 10% of your house, and that's about what is expected to put into, say, like a field system. So I look at the field system versus to purchase a few extra acres in order to be able to get that distance. I was just wondering whether they were made aware of it.
Madam Chair, it's probably a question for the applicant to have this with directly.
There, I'll let you speak to that. Does she have a microphone?
Thank you.
So, we wanted just a septic field. That's just our personal opinion. We didn't want the extra land because I don't like the look of a discharge field. And I have a dog that likes to swim in them, so we decided on a septic field just for that, so.
So you knew that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Stillberg.
And I guess just a question for planning on your referral agencies. I noticed the RCMP are contacted on a lot of the ones in our package today. And I think a common complaint is the RCMP don't have enough boots on the ground. And I was thinking if every municipality sent every subdivision to them for referral, they're going to be in the office doing a ton more paperwork. And I was just wondering, is it a requirement to get referrals from RCMP on these subdivisions, or is it an option?
Madam Chairman, that's certainly, I've never come on anything in the legislation that lists them as a mandatory referral agency. We've gone off the list that the county has traditionally used, so that is a local choice that you can choose to do. I have a number of municipalities that do try to involve the staff sergeant in development permits, but I have also a number that don't.
If I can just speak to that as well, I think particularly through our public participation processes that we've had in the past, we have often heard, especially for larger subdivisions or larger developments, requests as to whether RCMP, EHS, and fire, as holistically as emergency services, have been brought into the loop. I know particularly with large developments, I can bring in a decent amount of people. They worry about what that means for the police's ability to enforce. And so it's more of a population-based concern than anything.
Seeing no more hands raised, we have a motion on the table. So we'll call that all in favor. Okay, it's carried. So, thank you for coming, and you guys don't have to stick around if you don't want to.
Planning will reach out to you next.
There's nothing more riveting today.
Okay, Andrew, do we have anyone else on the phone?
No, just about. So and she's just here to provide reference if needed. But otherwise, if we can actually probably finish our subdivision files, and then possibly if the commission would permit, we could go do our in-camera session after that. Because I think it would be beneficial to have BCPS for that, and then we can let them go and get on with site inspections.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Nixon.
Just a comment on the talking to the RCMP. I think it'd be more beneficial to talk to the fire department, for example, would be, to me, seem like it would make more sense than to the RCMP. I don't recall, I'm just trying to recall in my mind anything that we would have had to refer to the RCMP in the last 14 years.
Well, I'm thinking of like the development at the lake, where there was a large development. I think that was where that stems from, right?
Yeah, no, I don't recall anything that it would have been a problem up until now.
Well,
We do send quite a bit to the fire, yeah. To our fire chief.
Lake, for sure, yeah.
He does receive a lot of.
Just a comment, Madam Chair.
Okay, we're gonna move down to 7.2 subdivision 2021-09, southwest 163819 on page 88.
How many times has this been cut up and does,
No, not yet. We're not there yet. I know the one you're talking about. We're not there yet.
Some suspense waiting for the fourth in the package, I think. So, Madam Chairman, this application also for a first parcel out of a previously unsubdivided quarter section. We're south of the town, a little further south from the last application. The application does have some issues around the interpretation of this development plan that I can try to explain a little bit more. And largely it relates to the use of an open discharge system. So the application that you're seeing is 8-acre parcels with the hopes of accommodating an open discharge as the preferred wastewater treatment approach. So in the MDP, when we read the text on the surface of it, what we find is that the standard rule is a preferred size of 5 acres, with the possibility of expanding for an open discharge, subject to demonstration that no other technology could work in this particular case. So usually I would interpret that to mean a soils report indicating that it's just too cost prohibitive, or it's not really practical to modify. Maybe it's excessively clay, or maybe there's a high groundwater table, or there's an excessive amount of sand that the other technologies are just not feasible, and we have to use an open discharge. So we do have that point to come back in the report. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit as well throughout the rest of the document. In terms of land use bylaw, we don't have any issue. Area structure plans, there's no area structure plan that applies. The road dedication and access, in this particular case, we do need dedication on both the south and the west in terms of building up to that 30-meter right-of-way on both sides. So there's about a little under 5-meter dedication from the quarter section on both sides to satisfy that. The existing approach, you can see in the pictures, we try to approximate where the applicant has indicated they'd like to have their approach and get some site photos on that. And it does look like there's no other existing access nearby to worry about separation distance. The site distances in both directions seem quite acceptable. Water and wastewater, in addition to the issue of relating to the MDP policy, we've added another sketch. Maybe I'll ask Andrew to scroll to that. It's the one that has nice colored rings on the air photo. To highlight some of the issues around the open discharge system. Next one, we have a Schedule C. That's so please. So in terms of assessing the property, can you fit both a house, meet all the Alberta private sewage regulations and code of practice, and meet the county setback requirements? And that's basically what this drawing is trying to show. In the middle of that ring is probably where the point of discharge would occur. I think it's kind of on a slight hill. It's kind of looks like a high point of the proposed parcel. The first ring that you see going out from that is around 45-meter radius. So within that radius, you can't have a building or a house. The next ring that you see going out is the 90-meter radius. So that's the distance you have to be from any existing property line, both existing property line for a new system or a new proposed property line. And you can see that that ring just makes it within the 8-acre parcel that they've drawn. So we're good in that respect. On the south side, you see the yellow dashed line. That's the mandatory setback from the center line of the county road, 38.10 meter. So we can't put a house that close to the highway. So that kind of pushes our building envelope north to the property. And on the west side, you can see the typical side yard of around 25 feet coming in. So that too gives us defining edge. We focus on that southwest corner because that's where the applicant had indicated their desire to have a house somewhere in that general vicinity. So they basically have to stay outside of the first blue ring, the tight one, and they have to be to the north and to the east of the 2 yellow lines. And when we look at that, there's sufficient space there for someone reasonably to meet all those requirements and still build a decent sized house. It could be right in that corner where Andrew was just highlighting, or it could extend farther north up along that west side. And there are other locations in the property. So that is one of the tests that we should be doing at the time of subdivision to see that it actually is still practical to develop the property. So that's it. We went over that. In terms of reserves, it's the first parcel out. So even though you can see the wetlands right to the immediate west, first parcel outs do not allow us to move on to environmental reserve dedication decisions. And we're not allowed to take municipal reserve dedication at this point. Next subdivision, that changes. Rural Development Fund, we've also tried to interpret that, and so the first 5 acres is the $50, and after that, this one in particular adds 3 additional acres. That's where the $1,000 an acre fund would kick in, to understand. And you can see from the site photos what the general lay of the land, the property looks like, and also the access locations along the road along the south. The recommendations, Madam Chair, are to give the applicant, number one, found on page 62, sorry, 92 in your package. The first one deals with the issue of whether or not a open discharge system would be acceptable in this case. We've not had the opportunity to ask the applicant to supply a report, so we're suggesting that kind of a 2-option type condition. Either one would satisfy the intent of the MDP. If they bring in a report indicating that in this particular location the system is not acceptable, then the application can move on as shown. If they choose that, or it comes back that they can't get someone to indicate that report, the second part of option 1, or condition 1, is to allow them to reduce the parcel size down to 5 acres, then choose a different technology. Most likely, I would expect that north boundary would just come south, closer to the road. The next condition is the standard expectation that it's a plan of survey for the actual subdivision plan. Number 3 is outstanding property taxes. Number 4 is 4 in this case, but still at the top of the list. Make sure you use the addressing sign with the number assigned by the county, so the fire department, police department, the ambulance can find you if need be. Number 5 deals with the dedication on both sides of the quarter section for that to build up to their share of that 30-meter road allowance. Number 6 deals with the approach. In this particular case, we don't have to worry about spacing, but they're still expected to build an approach to the county spec and standard. And then number 7, we also have the issue around clearing on both sides of the road, I believe, in this particular, just on both sides, on both the west side of the quarter section and the south side of the quarter section. Has been indicated by the operations department, so we added a condition to that effect. It was as indicated to us, they weren't available to join us in person or online. And I'd be happy to field any questions, Madam Chair.
Mr. Jenner,
I'll move it as presented, please.
any other questions on this? Seeing none, we'll call. All in favor?
Carried. Thank you. Okay, now down to 7.3, subdivision 2021-10, Northwest 213419, page 110.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So far, I think if I bit of contest between the divisions, that their division is, you're up 2. So, Big Valley's turn, you want to earn a point. This application, Madam Chairman, is for separation of the south portion of it, the existing quarter section that's already fragmented by an existing road. So effectively, from a physical setting, there already is a north portion and the south portion. And the subdivision basically looks at separating the south portion from the north, as you can see on the sketch, with the intent that the individual that would own and manage that would, they also farms a quarter section to the south as kind of an integrated single unit. This application does not propose to consolidate the area that you see outlined in purple with the quarter section to the south, so it will be a standalone parcel. The application does meet the MDP requirements, although we do have an issue of agricultural operations seem to be given a bit of a pass in terms of the overall size arrangements to recognize these kind of fragmentations, so long as we still have a large block of land that could remain in agricultural production. So we our general read in interpretation of the intent of the MDP policy. The road dedication issue, I think, had previously been screened with MPC before the applicant came in. And we followed up on that, the determination that there is a need for widening along the west side, but only for the portion of the township road that runs south of the intersecting road that runs in an east-west fashion. So we're not looking at the entire 800-meter frontage. It's kind of the 500 meters that's more to the south of the existing. The existing approaches, we had a chance to check that as well in the pictures. There is one, if we go back to it's hard to tell where you're on the photo, but that's kind of on one of the flat stretches of the road that bisects the 2 quarter sections, comes in from the north, does a turn, angles through on a straight stretch, then takes another turn to the south before exiting towards the southeast. So the photos that you're looking at are on that midpoint, kind of straight stretch, almost towards the middle, where you have the best opportunity for sight lines. And when we were out on the site inspection, I think a new approach was just putting in kind of opposite on the other side of the road. So we think that there's a opportunity for that safe approach to be created there. There's also ample space if someone, it's not indicated at this point by the applicant, we should always approach all these parcels as if they may one day have a house and they need a water and wastewater system. And in both cases, there's ample space to meet the land use bylaw requirements of place of dwelling and have a range of choice in terms of wastewater treatment systems and the placement of a water well. So we have no issues or concerns in that respect. Municipal reserves, again, this is the first parcel, the first subdivision of a quarter section, so we're not able to take those. And as you can see on the air photo, there are a series of this quite typical terrain across the settler area between these small hills and dales that are going to exceed that 50% slope and various pocket wetlands, the environmental reserve issues on another application that's not a first parcel that would become a little bit more interesting and exciting. We just don't have one of those for you here today. With that, Madam Chair, the Rural Development Fund, previously MPC had looked at it, and the applicant inquired and had made an indication that a waiver would be granted in this particular case. So we tried to document that in the recommendation and report as well. With that, Madam Chair, the recommendations can be found on page 113 of your agenda package. And you could probably guess, so I won't repeat them. The first three are the standard ones: survey, taxes, address. The fourth one is quite common, but in this particular case, we're very specifically identifying the road allowance. Road widening is required only along the southwest edge of this particular quarter section. We have indicated also the standard one for the construction of an approach to the county spec, and it does seem to be a safe location for it. And then at the top of the notes, we also indicated for record keeping that the Rural Development Fund has been waived. With that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to field any questions.
Mr. Clark first.
I'll make a motion to move forward as per staff recommendations.
Okay, and Mr. Stolberg?
I was going to do that as well, but while I got the floor, I'm going to ask a quick question on, I guess, county policy for the rural sign on a package that size and there's no buildings or anything. Do we require it yet? Thank you.
So my question is, what is that? There's a structure or something, is that a well or where? Well site?
By that old burial.
Yes. Starts with an E.
And,
Comments?
We do Business Road. Amber.
Yeah, so that is a oil and gas lease, 3-acre area. If you've had a chance to read the comments, Madam Chair, we didn't have a lot of sympathy for the comments from their land person. The fact that landowners change things and the land people have to redo legal documents at their expense, that is not a public interest item for the subdivision authority to consider.
any other questions?
Okay, seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Now we move on to 7.4, subdivision 2021-11, lot 2, block 1, plan 112-3072, page 129.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So another point going for the Statler Award in terms of contest. So this one, yeah, a little bit more exciting than the previous applications. We're going back and the proposal is to create a new parcel out of a previously 7.5 plus or minus subdivided parcel. So the existing one, I think you have to add the yellow and the purple area. The yellow is getting a little bit obscured. The yellow boundary shows you the existing title, and the pink boundaries show the new parcel to be created in the north portion. So in essence, the shop buildings are what you see south of the pink line, right, with one building close, and the former house, also an industrial apartment building in the north portion of the pink area. So the application meets all the requirements of the MDP. There's no area structure plan, no IDP to worry about. The land use bylaw that doesn't raise any issues. It meets the requirements both in terms of frontage and for size. Road dedication and access. There's already 2 access points that you can see on the air photo that meets a county expectation and standard. And that there's no requirement for additional road allowance or road dedication. We already have a 30-meter wide right of way along the west edge of the property. In terms of water and wastewater services, in this particular case, we're working around existing ones. That's not to mean that the applicants won't introduce new ones later on. For the house, it's a holding tank that's located at the very northeast corner of the dwelling that you see on the air photo, so it's well within the parcel boundaries proposed for the purple area. It's also a tank that's used to pump out. For the parcels to the south, the well is again closer to the larger of the buildings that you see in the middle on the east side, well away from the property line, and the holding tank is also in that general vicinity. So we don't have any concerns with respect to water and wastewater services. We do have a concern about the utility gas service for the house to the north. Located at the southwest corner of the yellow highlighted parcel is a gate station or a gas facility, and from that, and a series of lines branch out from that facility. And based on the county's GIS, we do know that there's a service line that runs up through the gravel yard on the west side of the industrial property to get to the house, which is within the purple blocks. So that's fine while they're under single title. It's just a private service that serves one parcel. When we split it, we have to take into account issues of easement. Doesn't mean that you have to relocate the line, but the company has to have the legal ability to come in and maintain that line. Unfortunately, we weren't able to hear back from the company prior to making a report for NBC. So we have introduced a condition to that effect that I'll highlight when we go through those. Reserves, they were previously addressed in a previous subdivision back in 2010. So we don't have a question of cash in lieu or land dedication in this particular case. Rural Development Fund or interpretation is because both parcels being created are two counts, they're both under 5 acres. So they don't have to dedicate. In addition, in terms of definition of private titles, industrial and commercial parcels are not included as a private title that only applies to agricultural and residential. So 2 points there for them not to be charged the Rural Development Fund. Site photos hopefully speak for themselves. Oh, sorry, one other issue I do have identified on the site photos. We can take a look at photo number 2. Because of the purple line, to create the new parcel to the north is not running very close to an existing building. We do check that. And, okay, so both of those photos, that building in the middle is the one kind of in the middle of the photo hiding behind the telephone post or trying to. So the property line proposed would go just to the left of that building, pretty close. The setback expectation is not very high. It's about 3 feet. So what we've suggested as a condition is that when the surveyor is out there to create the boundaries of the new parcel, they also check on the corners of this building to make sure that the new property line is at 3, even a little greater actually would be better, 3 feet away from that existing building. It is considered an ancillary building for the industrial district, so it doesn't have a very large setback distance. With that, Madam Chairman, the conditions, the recommendation is for approval, which you can find on page 132 of your agenda package, with the conditions going on to 133. You can probably guess the standard top 3 deal with survey, taxes, addressing. And then number 4, we get into the issue of confirmation by the surveyor when they're doing that plan that the setback distance is honored from that building we're just looking at. And number 5 is dealing with the conditions. There's again 2 options related to the gas line that cuts across the future industrial parcel to get to the future. It's also industrial parcel. I call it a house, but it's been converted and used as an office. That's served by that gas line. There's either confirmation to the subdivision authority that the gas line has been relocated, which can happen when they're looking at developing that property, in which case a letter from the service provider indicating that an easement is not required would do the trick, or provide an easement across the property line to that gas provider, which would also do the trick. With that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to field any questions.
Mr. Reddick?
So typically, doesn't the gas company just put a caveat on? Like I have some gas that runs to my neighbor's property through my property, and they just have a caveat on it.
They can. I'm not sure if we missed the gas co-op that should have received this. So we are putting this on the applicant to be doing the follow-up. The caveat doesn't give you any legal rights. It's the agreement that goes with it that gives you the legal rights.
Well, that's not what they told me, but hit it. Look up to the picture of the little building. Power pole that's in front of it, which does it service? Does it service the house or does it service the shop?
It would be going with the larger parcel to the south.
But does it, that's the question is, which does it service? My concern is that I think it services the house.
We may have the same item on the electrical. Yeah.
So these guys, I think, know how to move a power pole. They might have to move it 5 feet to the north. Is it north? I'm trying to figure out. I think it's north.
This is the north
You know,
side.
to the left of that photo would be north, yes.
Yeah, I think that might be something that we may want to make a note of, because power pole on somebody else's property can cause issues.
I guess it's the service lines connection. I can't remember if the applicant told us that they're already separate or not, but Madam Chair, if that's an issue, we can basically repeat condition number 5. It's just, we're just gonna change the theme, and we're gonna focus on the overhead power lines.
I don't know if they're overhead, I think how that comes into them.
It may drop and go below. I don't see a lot of,
I know the yard, and I don't think there is any overhead other than the service coming in.
Mr. Clark next.
Yeah, just to comment on that gas though too, you did mention gas co-op. I don't know if this is gas co-op here. I think it's maybe,
Gas.
Alta Gas, but gas co-op, there, you have to allow access.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I know that you do, yeah, that's part of being a co-op member, so.
that may satisfy it as well if it's all to gas. We've had, I'll do a little bit of background. There's kind of, when we're looking at gas mains, we have to distinguish whether or not they're a public service main. In other words, they service the entire district or neighborhood, in which case they may be typically in your road allowances. That one, you may want, you allow them to use your road allowances with your permission. When they're crossing private property lines, so basically they're not a municipal concern, they're a private service line. And some companies have got caught with trespass issues, where we've done these kind of duplexes in urban settings. And lo and behold, someone forgot to get that easement. And then the one other party just doesn't let them come across. And the companies get really shy around that. If they have an alternative method, and if that does follow the option in condition 5, they can easily just send us a letter, email saying, we're a co-op, we don't need the easement.
I don't think they are there, but
If it's Alta Gas, I kind of would have, because they're on our referral list, kind of would have liked to have heard from them. And they're probably more likely to come back with the issue that, yeah, we'd like an easement in this case. So hopefully we've got them both covered. We're also still trying to get used to which gas co-op is where. Bear with us on that.
And Mr. Nixon next.
I'm just wondering, I'm just assuming from what you said that there's just one service to that whole area, so wouldn't there have to be when it's subdivided, a separate service for gas and power to each subdivision? So those other lines would either have to be abandoned or something.
That certainly is one of the options. One of the standard referrals we often see coming back from the service providers is each lot is to have its own direct service off a public main at the expense of the developer to relocate lines. And that option is still available to the applicant. That would be another way that they could satisfy the part of that condition 5 that says we don't need an easement because we chose another way to solve it. Here's our easement confirmation for you.
Mr. Stuhlberg, did you have your hand up too? Just
I had a question for Craig on the response from AEP requesting that we consider ER for a setback on the 2 water courses. Is that?
So, yes, we did have that. Maybe we can go with the air photo, Andrew, if you wouldn't mind for a second. And I'm not sure if we got back to Todd to give him an answer, so he's probably not going to like this one. Could we look at that? Yes, it is it's not a first parcel out, so it's not shielded from environmental reserve dedication. We checked that in the field, and the creek it's not really hugging the property line, it's far removed. The area that we're dealing with the subdivision application is the area, the combined purple box and the yellow box. We don't get to go over after other lands that are not subject to the application. And the creeks are located in the other quarter section, or in the quarter section, which is a separate title and is not subject to the application. So if we were to look at an environmental reserve in this particular case, we can only stay within the yellow and the pink box. And we would probably be looking at an isolated narrow strip of land that would have to be publicly maintained and basically moving off. In addition, we'd be possibly looking at the county taking ownership of an industrial shop, which may or may not be an environmental concern in terms of a liability. In this particular case, it's going from an industrial to industrial, a future tenant. While they've done EI, environmental impact assessments, and say that it may not be contaminants, whenever we acquire land from an industrial setting, that should be one of the things that we get that meets our interest. So in this particular case, Madam Chair, we have not chosen to recommend environmental reserve dedication.
action on the board. Agenda.
As presented, please.
That's presented with the other power poles.
Yes.
With the addition on number 5.
Or just, I can help you out with that, Madam Chairman. It, as presented with the addition of condition number 6, based on condition number 5, but addressing electrical service. And we'll massage the text from there.
Okay. So with the addition of number 6.
Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so we finished this. Now, the request was to go into camera now?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of items that we had to consider, and I thought BCBS's expertise may be relevant in there as well, with some of the items that were requested to be brought forward.
Whoever.
Pleasure of the board, I take this into account.
All in favor? Carried. All in favor? Carried. So we're gonna go back to 6.3. Thank you for coming to Settler today, you guys. And have a safe drive back.
Thank you.
Page we're on.
6.3, that's page 59, is DP 21094, lots 22-24, block 6, plan 15-3Z.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The applicant is proposing to bring in a manufactured home, a 1999 model, and install it on the existing pilings on the parcel. To use the existing pilings, the modular will not meet the front or rear yard setbacks for the Hamlet Residential District. So the applicant is requesting a 14% variance to the front yard, so from 25 feet down to 17.4 feet, and a 12% variance to the rear yard setback, 21 feet down from 25 feet. The proposed manufactured home is older than 15 years, being that it is a 1999 model, but it does appear to be in good condition and meets or exceeds the condition of comparable manufactured homes in the surrounding area. The applicant does not currently own the property, and purchase of the land is contingent upon the approval of the development permit.
Mr. Clark?
No, I saw the people when they met Mr. Goodkey in there. And from looking at the pictures and stuff, they come from BC and bought this particular home up in Heisler. And even this spring, their lot flooded, so that tells you on a good year, a real wet year, what it's going to be like. It's the lowest spot in Heisler. They looked at pricing out to bring dirt in to level up their lots in Heisler, and they felt it was just better to move. So they look like they'd be willing to pay taxes, and we do have piles sitting on the site right now. And it was nice when it was home, the taxes in Gadsby forced them to load Gadsby at that point, so. I would move this forward based on staff recommendations.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call it. All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're going to the additions. That's what you have in front of you right here. Okay. So it's DP 2110-1 Northwest 283818. That's this one. You do? Okay.
This application is also for a communication tower on the northwest of 283818, west of the forest. The applicant has done the public consultation, and he sent out letters to landowners within a 1 mile radius on June 24th, and he published the notice also in the Stellar Independent. They've also done their co-location assessment and determined that there was a tower within 6.6 kilometers. However, it was not capable of supporting the ExploreNet equipment. So they are proposing a new tower at the site. And they have not provided confirmation of their roadside development permit from Alberta Transportation. I requested it be provided to us, and still haven't received it. So it will be subject to Highway or Alberta Transportation's approval for the access off of Highway 850. Summarizes.
Have they consulted with the landowners around them?
Yes, they have. They sent a written notice to the landowners within a mile radius, and also it was published in the Stellar Independent. And we will also be doing our referral, advising adjacent landowners of their 21-day appeal period. It comes into effect once the decision is issued.
Mr. Clark?
Would they have contacted all the village of Botha, and were you contacted, Ernie? So I wonder, how far that actually went, because that's right across the road from Ernie.
Yes, I did see the list, and it was not very thorough, but we will be sending it to all Botha residents because they are within 1 mile radius.
Mr. Gender?
But it's gonna speed that turtle up for me by all means.
Have approval from the Mulbacks to install it on their land. It is, there's, the site plan shows it is close to Highway 850. It's, but meets, so this is why we need our approval from Alberta Transportation for issuing the permit.
We don't have a motion on the floor yet. Mr.
Yeah, I'll move it forward, please.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried.
Where? Right straight south where, remember Old Taggart, they're, Upton have that, and the place to the south of that?
Okay.
Yeah. Right south of the police transfer site.
All right, so we'll move on to old business, 9.1, DP 20074, lot 32, block 2, plan 0720960, page 145.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this application was denied for the deck above the ancillary building, and also the ancillary building was denied by the Municipal Planning Commission. And however, in November 25th, 2020, it was subsequently appealed and brought to the appeal board. And the decision of the appeal board was provided in your package. So the decision was to allow the ancillary building and a permit to be issued for a recreational vehicle. Recreational vehicles are motorhomes when we were on the site, so we had determined that they weren't permanent structures. However, the appeal board did rule that a permit could be issued and the recreational vehicles did not need to be present on the site at all times. The requirement was to remove the deck railing and the deck from the upper level of the ancillary building. However, the landowners are requesting that MPC consider some modifications as shown on the sketch to allow the deck to be left on the ancillary building.
So the request is mostly for the roof.
Allow the roof.
They will still abide by the appeal board decision. Mr. Nyberg.
Is this a,
Like, is there any, if you're gonna put a roof on this, like, is there gonna be any engineering study done on the safety of this? This is building a house there. Unfortunately, am not in favor of this at all. I think you think we got grief about this before, we're gonna get a lot more. I agree 100%.
Mr. Stilber.
To me, it makes it greater eyesore to get the roof on there because it's just getting up higher for everybody to have to look around.
And this guy doesn't want to park his motorhome there all the time because he feels that there's thieving and stuff going on, right? I don't know. I thought I feel for him, but unfortunately, he did something that he wasn't supposed to do, and there are costs and consequences. In the real world, people get zeros. We're not in school anymore.
Is the roof actually on it already?
Yeah.
It's just a really good
Drawing.
it's a good drawing.
It's the next.
No,
Chair, my question is, how is he gonna get up there out of a garage if he takes the stairway? Because that's one of the conditions too. And the railing, take the railing and the stairway away. So. I doubt if he'll build a roof on it.
Is this going to the subdivision? Is he taking it to the subdivision?
We already did. We did that
It failed.
without the roof though.
Yeah, but it failed, right?
No, subdivision,
This is the decision.
Moved the ancillary building, but he had to remove the deck from the top.
Oh, okay.
Stairway.
where the bottom part could stay.
And had to get a permit for the permanent dwelling, primary dwelling. which doesn't necessarily need to be on site, but it did.
Rich?
I just wanted to speak to the fact that, you know, we have a decision from the SDAB board, which specifically said that that rooftop patio had to come down.
We can't go against that.
Yeah, and, you know, and be careful what reasons we give for why we deny this, I guess, because it could end up in appeals again. But I don't think we have any provisions in our land use bylaw that allows for a rooftop patio on an ancillary building. And to me, that's kind of dry.
Do you want a motion to deny this, or do you want a motion just to receive for information?
Is there an application?
No, it's just a proposal.
I would
Amend the.
give,
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we instruct administration to tell this applicant to follow the instructions laid out by the subdivision and appeal board. Is that, for administration, is that right?
Okay, no other questions? You just getting ready to, I'll call the question, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, now, 9.2, Roshan Sands.
If I could just back up, did they tell him he had to put a peaked roof on it, or how did they do, what did they do?
it said get rid of the railing and the stairway and get a permit. The whole SJV decision's actually in your package.
I wondered if they told me he had to put a peaked roof on it, because a flat top roof on there is not making any sense to me, but whatever. Sorry, Madam Chair.
We'll move on to Roshan Sands Estates, landowner concerns, complaints, page 151.
This one's back again.
Madam Chair, I think Rich, you may be able to contribute to this as well. So we did receive a complaint regarding the fence on the property located at the street address here, if you're familiar with. 6 Buffalo Way, Roshan Sands Estates. So we have some pictures during the winter where it shows, that's the trees removed from the property. There is a gap in the fence, and the color of the painting was never done as required from the appeal board decision on May the 14th. No, actually, this was back in March. I'm just sorry, I'm jumping here. The decision was the fence was to be painted by June the 15th, which was the result of the subdivision development appeal board decision. So the fence, part of it is white, and the fence is a natural color. And also the approval was for the 8-foot fence. The landowner has communicated that the fence is all wood, not vinyl, as indicated in the report. As well, they said that there are some structures or some vehicles right at the top of the hill on their property, and they are just there temporarily while they are constructing a new home on the site. So they intend to put them at the rear of the property, so not visible from the road. So they have a lot of, they are constructing a new home on that site at the moment.
What did they do with the old one?
It was demolished and removed.
We've had some movement.
It was supposed to all be done by June 30th.
You honestly thought that was gonna happen?
Well, I'm sorry,
We take people at face value.
right, and so I think council needs to, make an impression that, if he doesn't comply, then the county will move in, do it, and charge him.
Now, the top part of the home was taken off, right? The bottom was still there.
Yes, but they are constructing the new home on their site right now. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I visited the site last week during site inspections and met with Mr. Lockhart, who happened to be there when I stopped. He was not very happy to see me. The new house is all framed up. The roof is framed. The old structure has been torn down. He wouldn't allow me on the property to take any photos of that, so I just took the photo of the fence from the roadway because I didn't want to agitate the situation. There is a trailer up in this picture that's up right now. You can see the RV. Well, beside that RV, there is a trailer with a small utility truck parked on it. And there's a couple other vehicles down behind the fence where you can't really see. And I suspect the reason they're up there is because he's moved them from the lower part of the property because they're doing the construction down there. So I don't know. I assume that they hauled away the debris from tearing down what the existing structure that was there. But again, without being able to access the property, I can't say for sure.
Madam Chair, so through to administration, what's our course of action with this? What's the next? Do we go in with a chainsaw and cut the top of this fence off and throw it away and paint it all one color or what? And then send the bill to Mr. Lockhart?
I believe the existing court order mostly concerned the older dilapidated buildings that are now removed from the site and didn't address some of the other nuisances because it was strictly seeking compliance under 60 coastal land use bylaw. So it does mean we're not as far along with enforcement as we would need to be to get some compliance. So new stop orders for the fence if that hasn't been addressed, and any vehicles that shouldn't be on site that are there permanently would have to be part of that stop order.
Does the trailer have a, did they register the trailer like he's supposed to?
It's only stored there, it doesn't require registration, right? So it's occupied dwelling unit. And I don't know if there's any evidence of it being occupied.
Okay.
You know, picture there, no awning out, right up by the road, it's probably not serviced there. Can't say for sure, but.
Yeah, I drove by it July long weekend, and I couldn't tell if someone was in it or not.
No, that's fair enough.
I think the neighbors, from what I understand, might be happier if the fence was all in color and it would be the natural color that they would be after.
I have to say that.
On page 156 of the package, there's the approval for the 8-foot fence. But again, the color, there's different colors is what basically was not needed to be corrected. Needed to have one solid color. The natural color would blend in better with the environment. The white was, was mentioned at the time that it was more of a.
How tall is that fence?
8 feet.
The white would be 8 feet and the brown would be 6.
6 feet, yes.
It's all supposed to be 8 feet.
Should match.
Up to, I don't know that we would actually have a lot of leg to stand on to say extend the height of your fence, but certainly match the material appearance would include either stripping the paint off the old one or painting the new one.
We would issue a stop work order basically telling him to comply with the color of the fence by such and such a date. And then if he didn't, this one is kind of like mow your grass, right? If you don't do it, then we send a crew in to do it and they have to pay the bill. But we could lay that out so that they understand it in the letter.
We told them to paint the fence though, before, so to me, to go back to natural color is being unreasonable. If we tell him that he has to paint the balance of the fence, I could understand, but to take it back to natural color because the other residents want, we told him to paint the fence. So I don't think we're right to tell him to take it back. How do you take it back to natural color?
Well, I think the brown is a painted surface.
It's maybe just stained though.
Oh, okay.
You know, natural wood, pretty hard to get that paint off, so.
Yeah.
If it is, it's just weatherproofed or.
Number 1 says the gate shall continue to match the material and appearance of the fence.
Yeah, so that was what the subdivision development appeal board ruled, was that the extensions to the fence shall match.
Okay. So that'd be white, not back to natural.
I mean, had they wanted to make the white go back to natural, that would still serve would match.
Part of the year it does blend in though, by that picture.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mr. Spielberg.
Way to business.
And once he gets his new home completed and all of his junk's picked up, he doesn't require a fence, does he? Wasn't that just a screening thing? Because he wouldn't.
That was to mitigate the nuisance
Yeah.
of the property, but the issue with derelict vehicles or what maybe operating vehicles that are numerous on that property has not really been addressed.
They're still there.
I did contact Ms. Walker's daughter, and they indicated that they will want to leave the fence there for privacy reasons. Even after the new home is constructed, because that was my question, whether.
All one
Oh my God.
painted white or, I mean, or strip the other stuff off, but I agree that it should be one color.
And all it does say is match, so I guess they could choose.
Yeah, that's true. They have to match.
Madam Chair, I say that we send a letter stating that he has to get this done by a certain time or stop work order happens. And be specific what we want, okay? Fence has to be all the same height. It has to be all the same color.
Same height would be challenging to enforce.
You would probably cut the other down.
Yeah, he could cut the other one down or raise the other one up, whatever he does, that's his choice.
The height wasn't a mandatory specification. I don't
But I mean,
believe.
it's hard not to, because if you finish this gate, it's gonna look ugly. If you put another side on the brown gate, how does it match I don't know what the hell they got going on there, but it looks like, what are they gonna go down
Yeah, I've seen fences in town that do that. They come so far and then they go this far. And I don't have a problem with the height because the road's higher. Then you
Yeah.
have a 6-foot fence. You're gonna have to look right over it anyway.
So just color match, that's all we
think
want.
color
Just be
match.
specific what we want.
And as I think it mentions in there, have the gates match too. Well, the gates don't match the height of the fence and they don't match each other, so that's a pretty easy fix.
Does this property have a restrictive covenant on it that talks about agricultural or architectural colors design? Okay.
So send the letter and make it specific what we're doing with the stop work order to follow if it doesn't. And make it sure that we've been dealing with this for quite a time and we are ready to move on this. It is the MPC's explicit instructions that we are to move and mitigate this circumstance. Yeah, that is.
Ready? Everyone ready? We'll call the question, all in favor? Carried.
So there is 2 parts to the.
That's right.
I'm sure there are 2 parts. And then move on to
920 Drive.
So we also received complaints about this property, non-conforming drive. The deck that had fallen at the front of the property, some concerns for safety. And also just the appearance and unsightliness. So we have
Been provided with pictures of the interior.
Who took the pictures? Whoever took them was trespassing.
That's what was stated before, is that the pictures, unless what we could see visibly from the other pictures, didn't indicate an unsightly, really, to us, at that point, didn't indicate an unsightly premise or safety issue.
Can we even, under FOIP, are we even allowed to show these pictures?
We will send in the public package. I just included it.
I know, but what I'm saying, this, I'm cautious about dealing with this because we could get slapped pretty hard with this.
What's your suggestions with Harlan?
Yeah, I mean, vis-a-vis VoIP specifically, it wouldn't meet the criteria for what is personal information. Um,
Pictures of my personal home is pretty personal to me.
Not under the legislation. However, with that said, I mean, if there was trespassing that occurred, then this is evidence of that trespassing. And there is reasonable argument that a landowner may make and utilize that evidence in criminal or civil investigations moving forward. So council can be mindful of that. We can't utilize these pictures on their own to action enforcement necessarily, nor would we ever off of a complaint. At enforcement actions always instigated first with an inspection that we can lawfully do and lawfully enter the lands and collect our own evidence. We can't ever take somebody else's evidence at face value, much as we might like to. We have to repeat so that we can swear an affidavit saying, I was there, I took that picture, or I witnessed the drone operator take that picture, or something to that effect.
Just gonna, Andrew touched on what my thoughts were gonna be, that if anything, I think all we can do with this is get in touch with the landowner and request to do a site inspection. I think would be in our own best interest for sure.
Mr. Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I talked to Kathy Hankins a month or two or so ago about this, and I can't, just looking at it, I guess doesn't look terrible. Maybe there's the grass needs trim or anything, but it's fenced off for some reason or other. I don't know whether it's used for pasture or what it is, but I think the least we could do, besides ask for permission to do a site inspection, is to advise the owner to put up a no trespassing, just in case somebody gets in there, a kid falls or something, hurts themselves in this basement. So that.
Madam Chair, if we're going after derelict houses, there is, in the countryside of this county, I can give you 20 sites right now that are in serious disrepair. And if this is where we're gonna start, you've got every old farmhouse that has an old granary that isn't fixed up or isn't looking good. I dare say there's places that we have up in Mr. Nixon's area that people are living in the houses that I would put in, but.
So we have a request for unsightly premise. Usually we go by complaint, right? So
What if we
should we?
contacted the owner and just told them that we've received complaints, concerns about the,
Have we not already done that?
there is weeds, ask them, give them a deadline to clean it up, or.
Yeah, I did a letter from the owners of this saying that because her husband's health, because he died and things like that,
I don't think it was his property.
It was a different subdivision.
property.
I think this one, last time we brought it forward to NPC, we only had the pictures that looked somewhat like this, whereby it didn't appear to be a significant nuisance from the perspective of a neighboring landowner or public, and NPC opted not to act at that time, considering that there was no visible nuisance from the documentation we provided, and that looks like why the complainant has followed up with more specific.
But they broke the law to do it.
They may have had consent. We have no evidence either way, and I would caution supposing either way. It's worth noting if council or NPC wants to act, the next logical step is a site inspection, which we can, consent is one way to do it, but we can also require it. And if they don't, then we have to go to court. Or if they refuse us access to the site, we have to go to court to get that, but that's quite a quick turnaround. We have had to do that in the past.
But why not raise the concerns first?
Yeah, we can absolutely see
With the
voluntary
owners, but,
compliance.
You know, we're getting complaints and get an idea of what their plan is.
And I believe there were extenuating circumstances. I think that's what Kathy Hankins said, is why, health reasons or something like that, is why this place is not been looked at.
So we might as well find out from the owner. I guess.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Mr. Clark?
It's just to caution us again, unless these have been approved to be sent to us by the landowner or sent to us by the landowner. I really think we shouldn't have been part of our package to look at. Because we had this come before us before, we said we couldn't really tell through the windows. And now we've got pictures that proves that somebody trespassed, to take pictures to bring to us. It could prove if the landowner decided to push it.
Yeah, the landowner hasn't given any.
But to me, I saw this in our package again and shook my head because I just thought, I didn't think we should have had these in there.
Okay, Mr. Nixon?
I would make a motion, Madam Chair, that we have administration contact the landowner and just to inform them that there have been some complaints. And I think that's quite reasonable.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? Your hand up. Okay, opposed? So opposed, Mr. Nyberg and Mr. Clark. So it's passed. Okay, moving on to 9.4 DP 21032 lot 1 block 1 plan 1425 19-1. And this is the other memo that we have. Right?
Yes. There was one ahead of just a notification from 9.3. Is that?
Oh, did I miss it? Oh, sorry, I already crossed it off.
It's just information that they've
Oh, Lacombe County, yeah, notification subdivision approval. Mr. Clark,
Except for information.
okay, all in favor? It's carried. Now we'll move on to the 9.4. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On April 28th, 2021, MPC voted in favor of the proposed development of a farm stall located on Lot 1, Block 1, Plan 1425191. There were several conditions added to the development permit. All but one have been completed by the applicant. The condition of applying dust control is the only outstanding condition left, and there is some confusion as to how much dust control is to be applied. The notice of decision reads that the applicant was to apply dust control adjacent to the subject property along Township Road 390. But when reviewing the video of the meeting, the motion was for dust control along Township Road 390 from Range Road 20-4 to 20-3, which measures out at about 560 feet because it's along a correction line there. The applicant was under the understanding that he was only responsible for about 75 meters. So it's a little bit longer, when I reviewed the meeting minutes, it's a little bit longer than what he had anticipated. So I've spoken with him about that, and he's willing to work with the corrected distance. But due to the time of year and product availability, he's having a really difficult time finding a qualified group to apply the dust control of either an oil product or calcium, and is therefore proposing to use water to dust control for this year only. And then next year he can join the county's dust control program or find another supplier as long as it's to the satisfaction of the county. The applicant has been in contact with the Erskine Colony and have them ready to apply water to the road as needed to control the dust. The applicant is wishing to get started on construction right away for this project, so staff is looking for direction on this issue from MPC to get the matter settled.
Okay, Mr. Nyberg.
I am most definitely in favor of that.
That's something we can do. I'd make a motion that we allow them to apply dust control as as needed basis. And with the fact that if they would like to either apply through the county's dust control program or and the one thing I would like to do though is I think they need to either make the application to us so it's in place, or show us that they have a contract in place with somebody else going forward. Their easiest bet would be to just
contract or to make application with us. It's in place, it's good to go. I just don't want this to be the issue come forward next spring where they're saying, oh yeah, I forgot to do this. I don't think they will, but I just don't want any issues going forward. Does that make sense, Marlene?
So you actually don't want an or, you want an and?
Yeah. They, for this season, they can use dust control,
Yeah.
but they are water as dust control as needed basis and make either an application or prove to us that they have applicate or a contract with somebody to apply it first thing in the spring.
Like, have they started construction on this? And I'm just saying, like, if they haven't, they're not really going to have the traffic as what they would see like in the future.
Yeah,
So
but that's what I'm saying. They don't have to do it on it's as needed basis, right? They may never ever need to put any water on that book.
And just also, I think the concern was a clarification on the amount of dust control needed. So that I
They
think.
said they could work with the in between the two range roads.
Yeah, between the two range roads.
Okay,
As long as NBC didn't want to indicate that that was not your intent last month, whenever.
No, that's exactly it.
That's what we had thought, but we wanted to ensure that it was clear.
Okay, so everyone understand that? Okay, we'll call the question, all in favor? Okay,
Got a question here, Madam Chair.
Mr. Silver.
We're getting ready for the next part, number 12. You are.
Yep,
I'll move to adjourn.
okay, all in favor?